here. So Jai Jinendra everyone. Welcome to the February monthly meeting for JSCNC. I see a lot of familiar faces here and you are aware of the protocol now. Please stay on mute if you are not speaking. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and one of us will respond to them. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our JSCNC President, Mr. Anand Shah, to start the meeting. Over to you, Anand Bhai.
Thank you, Ketan. Jai Jinendra, everyone. We will go ahead and get started with by reciting Mangalacharan. Mayur Bhai Loda, over to you.
Jai Jinendra, hope everyone is doing well. And while keeping yourself on mute, it is always good to recite along, and that's how we do it for ourselves. Om Namo Arantanam Om Namo Siddhanam Om Namo Ayariyanam Om Namo Vajjayanam Namo Loe Savasahunam Eso Pancha Namo Karo Sava Pava Panasano Mangalanam Cha Savesim Padamam Havai Mangalam Padamam Havai Mangalam Chattari Mangalam Arihanta Mangalam Siddha Mangalam Sahu Mangalam Kevali Panato Dhammo Mangalam Chattari Logutama Arihanta Logutama Siddha Logutama Sahu Logutama Kevali Panato Dhammo Logutamo Chattari Sharanam Pavajjami Arihante Sharanam Pavajjami Siddhe Sharanam Pavajjami Sahu Sharanam Pavajjami Kevali Panatam Dhammam Sharanam Pavajjami Samaro mantra balo navakare che chauda purava no sa e naam hi mano nahi pare no artha anantaya par sukh ma samaro dukh ma samaro Samaro divasan raat jivata samaro marata samaro samaro sau sangat samaro mantra bhalo navakare che chauda puravano sar Jogi samare bhogi samare samare raja rank devo samare danav samare samare sauni shank samaro mantra bhalo navakare che chauda puravano सार 68 अक्षर ए ना जानो 68 तीरथ सार 8 संप्रदाति परमाणु सिद्धि दातार समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार छे चौद पुरवनो सार નવપદ એના નવનિધિ આપે, ભવ ભવના દુઃખ કાપે. વીર વચનથી હૃદયે સ્થાપે, પરમાત્મ પદ આપે. સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર છે, 14 પુરવનો સા. એના મહિમાનો નહીં પાર, એનો અર્થ અનંત અપાર, એનો અર્થ અનંત અપાર. મૈત્રી ભાવનું પવિત્ર ઝરણું મુજ હૈયામાં વહ્યા કરે. શુભ થાઓ આ સકલ વિશ્વનું, એવી ભાવના નિત્ય રહે. એવી ભાવના નિત્ય રહે. ગુણથી ભરેલા ગુણીજન દેખી, હૈયું મારું નૃત્ય કરે. એ સંતોના ચરણ કમલમાં મુજ જીવનનું અર્ધ્ય રહે. મુજ જીવનનું અર્ધ્ય રહે. દીન ક્રૂર ને ધર્મ વિહોણા, દેખી દિલમાં દર્દ રહે. કરુણા ભીની આંખોમાંથી અશ્રુનો શુભ સ્ત્રોત વહે. અશ્રુનો શુભ સ્ત્રોત વહે. માર્ગ ભૂલેલા જીવન પથિકને, માર્ગ ચીંધવા ઉભો રહું. કરે ઉપેક્ષા એ માર્ગની, તોય સમતા ચિત્ત ધરું. તોય સમતા ચિત્ત ધરું. ચંદ્ર પ્રભુની ધર્મ ભાવના, હૈયે સહુ માનવ લાવે. વેર ઝેર ના પાપ તજીને, મંગલ ગીતો એ ગાવે. પ્રભુ મંગલ ગીતો એ ગાવે. મૈત્રી ભાવનું પવિત્ર ઝરણું મુજ હૈયામાં વહ્યા કરે. શુભ થાઓ આ સકલ વિશ્વનું, એવી ભાવના નિત્ય રહે. એવી ભાવના નિત્ય રહે. બહુ પુણ્ય કેરા પૂંજથી, શુભ દેહ માનવ નો મળ્યો. તો એ અરે ભવ ચક્રનો આંટો, નહીં એ કે તળ્યો. સુખ પ્રાપ્ત કરતા સુખ ટળે છે, લેશ એ લક્ષે લહો. ક્ષણ ક્ષણ ભયંકર ભાવ મરણે, કા અહોરાચી રહો. લક્ષ્મી અને અધિકાર વધતા, શું વધ્યું તે તો કહો. શું કુટુંબ કે પરિવારથી વધવા, પણ એ નય ગ્રહો. વધવા પણ સંસારનું નર, દેહને હારી જવો. એનો વિચાર નહીં અહો. એક પલ તમને હવો નિર્દોષ સુખ નિર્દોષ આનંદ લ્યો ગમે ત્યાંથી ભલે એ દિવ્ય શક્તિ માન જેથી જંજીરેથી નીકળે પર વસ્તુમાં નહીં મૂંઝવો એની દયા મુજને રહી એ ત્યાગવા સિદ્ધાંત કે પશ્ચાત દુઃખ તે સુખ નહીં હું કોણ છું ક્યાંથી થયો શું સ્વરૂપ છે મારું ખરું કોના સંબંધે વડગણા છે રાખું કે એ પર હરું એના વિચાર વિવેક પૂર્વક શાંત ભાવે જો કર્યા તો સર્વયાત્મિક જ્ઞાનના સીધા તત્વ અનુભવ્યા તે પ્રાપ્ત કરવા વચન કોનું સત્ય કેવલ માનવું નિર્દોષ નરનું કથન માનો તે જેણે અનુભવ્યું રે આત્મતારો શીઘ્ર એને ઓળખો સર્વાત્મમાં સમદ્રષ્ટિ દ્યો વચનને હૃદયે લખો સર્વાત્મમાં સમદ્રષ્ટિ દ્યો વચનને હૃદયે લખો મારે ક્યાંય કંઈ ભૂલ થઈ હોય તો તે માટે બધાને મિચ્છામિ દુક્કડમ. થેન્ક યુ આનંદભાઈ અને પ્લીઝ ટેક ઇટ ઓવર.
Thank you, Mayurbhai. Recently, we heard the news about Srimati Kusumben Chinubhai Shah passing away on February 8th. Some of you might know her, but she was the mother of Dr. Sanjay Shah. She's been a long time member of our community. So I request all of you to pray for her soul by observing a 2-minute silence. You can recite 7 Nokar mantra in your mind and pray for her soul to rest in peace. Om Shanti. Welcome everyone to the February monthly meeting. Last year, the committee was looking for some expanded content. I know we have been doing this virtual meeting for almost over 2 years now. So over that time, we have experimented with the meeting format, not a whole lot, but one of the things we noticed was to maybe introduce some broader some content that is enjoyed by the broader audience, and it also adds some change to our regular monthly meeting format. So with that intent in mind, I'm pleased to announce that we have added a new holistic living segment to each of our monthly meetings. This is a new idea, so quite likely if we make any mistakes or things don't work out on behalf of the committee, but the focus of each of these sessions is to bring variety of topics from kind of the area of holistic living. Those of you who know about it, it's basically a lifestyle that lets you look at the big picture, the whole person. There are three pillars typically, and the terms typically varies, but the three pillars are really, mind, body, and soul. And our goal is to provide bite-sized chunks, if you will, so 30-minute sessions on any one or a topic that could potentially talk about each of the three pillars. And the goal is to really create awareness within the community. I know when I was young, usually the sentiment used to be that when you retire, that's when you will think about your spiritual uplifting, or you will be more like focused on diet and exercise. But all of us knows that those were just a myth. I wish I had started a lot sooner. So the goal again with these sessions is to create more awareness earlier for everyone who attend the meeting. And so focus is obviously we're going to invite local speakers, because I like to invite we have a lot of talent, even though our community is small. A lot of talented individuals who might be practitioners, or who have personally integrated these three pillars in their lifestyle. Certainly we will be looking for other speakers who could come to the meeting and talk about these topics. So with that, I'm pleased to announce that our inaugural session on this is going to be led by Mrs. Jyoti Vensha. Of course, for most of you who have been regular attendees, she needs no introduction, but she is, I'll spend a minute just giving her a brief intro about her. She's an accomplished and professional yoga teacher with over 15 years of yoga teaching experience, and counting, I should say, because she leads a lot of active sessions. Some of you might be taking advantage of the meditation session that she offered to the community 2 times a week. She's a founder of Yogashila in Northwest Cary, and she's been teaching yoga, as I mentioned, since 2004. Her teaching brings awareness towards deep breathing while in asanas, incorporates various pranayam techniques in meditation to stay present and positive. So with that in mind, I'd like to turn it over to Jyotiben, who is going to be discussing with us Breath Swadhyay. Over to you, Jyotiben.
Thank you, Anand. That was a wonderful introduction, but we didn't need to do that. But I'll accept that, whatever Anand has to say. And I'm still a student. I'm still a lifelong learner. I'm still a practitioner. So, and what I'll be introducing you today is still very new for most of us. And so usually we do Swadhyay, right? We do Swadhyay of we do the Swadhyay self-study, and subjects could be anything, right? And we have been doing for Jain-related studies we do. Today, what we'll be doing is the Breath Swadhyay, which is a very new concept, and you must be thinking, why? What has to do, Breath Swadhyay, and open koi Swadhyay hoi sake? But yes, it's a huge field. It's mind-blowing. And when I realized it, I said, oh my, I know nothing about it. And I've been teaching yoga for all these years. So that realization point was there for me. And I thought it would be nice to introduce in our small community. So by doing breath swadhyay, what we'll be doing is bringing some awareness, right? Awareness to our own breath. That's where we'll start from, our own breath, how we have been breathing. And you may be hearing me saying that throughout the many times I've been offering yoga classes, like bits and pieces here and there, and I still emphasize on breath. But breath is still, what I'm saying, breath is so much deeper than what it has to be, what we have to talk about. So we have to experience that too. So to begin with today, there are some very, very basic questions where it has been misinterpreted and there are a lot of misconception about that. So I will be going through some questions and you will be answering those questions. So I'm going to pull, and I have two screens, so you may see me going from one screen to another screen. So I'm still looking at you. So what we need to do is join the slido.com. So everyone on your phone, you can do that. And in that slido.com, you have to enter this hashtag number 201708, or you can have your phone screen camera and place it on this QR code and then click on that. So you will receive a screen. And then once you do that, the question will pop up. And I have Kamlesh beside me helping me because this is all new for me. So
IT support.
All right. So
Give them time to
yeah.
get ready.
I have also added in the chat the name
Okay.
of the website and the code number. So in case someone wants to click on it and do it on their computer.
So I'll just here, right?
Yeah, just click. Yeah.
All right. So the first question is, the more we breathe, the healthier we are. Is it true or false? Can take some more time if you want to think about it. So far, 10 people have answered this. So 14 people. Any more?
Give them
How many?
another 5 seconds.
Yeah. The more we breathe, the healthier we are. All right. So 57%, okay, go ahead. Good. 64% is saying false, and 36% is true. The more we breathe, the healthier we are. I'll wait a few more seconds as people are still responding. Okay, now let's, so before you and I, we answer that what's the right answer for this, we'll take 1 minute and I'm going to set the timer and I will say start. That's the time we'll be taking breaths per minute. So you want to note how many breaths you are taking per minute. And just make that, write it down, that many breaths. So I will say start and I'll say stop. That's the time you want to stop.
It's their own. They don't need to share.
Yeah, that you don't have to share. So make sure, like, it's okay. So ready, set, go. However way you breathe regularly, count your breaths. And you don't have to count when I say stop, whatever number in that sense, you have to write it down. Stop. All right. So make that note of it for yourself. So depending on how many breaths you may have taken, right? So everything in proportion is good. It's like our food calories, right? 2000 calories that's what we need. But when during Diwali, during Thanksgiving, we end up taking 4,000, 5,000 calories, right? So everything, and you know how it feels when you overeat. Anything we do oversleeping or any other thing, it's harmful to our self, harmful to our body. Same thing is like breath. And you may be thinking, really? What difference it makes how many breaths I take per minute, right? It's important that, and for example, an average person takes anywhere from 10 to 15 breaths per minute, average healthy person at rest. Per breath, 500 milliliters. That's what we need to take. And if we are taking 10 breaths per minute, so 10 times 500 ml, it comes out to be 5 liter. Anywhere from 4 to 6 liter is a good balance for any average healthy person. This may change based on the age, the sex, and the weight of a person, and definitely their lifestyle. But for healthy person, between anywhere from 4 to 6 liter is a good number per minute. So now you may want to calculate how many breaths you took times 500 ml. Does it come out to be between 4 and 6 liters? Make your own calculation and do your own math. And there are, so now we'll go to so this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And this is we are just sprinkling. I'm just sprinkling these things on you to bring the awareness of your own breath. We'll go much more detail in our future sessions. So as I said, this is just the beginning, sprinkling few things so you start thinking on those lines. So the next question is, taking a bigger breath oxygenates us more. True or false? It's okay. People are still responding. Taking a bigger breath oxygenates us more. Is it true or false? Few more seconds. All right, so let's stop here. Okay, go ahead still. See number going up and down. Maybe another 30 seconds. So taking a bigger breath oxygenates us more. Okay, go ahead still. I see the bar is going back and forth. So go ahead and respond that. And 10 seconds and I will begin. So for anything, the proportion is a good word to keep in mind. So when we take bigger breaths, does it oxygenates us more? So if we take bigger breaths, we want to make sure that both the gases, O2 and our carbon dioxide, CO2, needs to be in balance, right? So bigger breaths, in fact, deoxygenates us by temporarily hyperventilating. What is hyperventilating, right? Breathing more than our metabolic need. So you may have felt also at certain time that you feel that as if you are not breathing enough, and then you breathe more. We have to just do the opposite of that when you have that feeling. And that feeling, when I'm saying hyperventilating, you should be knowing that this is the hyperventilation. There could be other medical reasons that you might be feeling. So see what is causing first. That you have to keep in mind first. If it's hyperventilation, then yes. Then in that case, you want to breathe less. That's the key. And then it will, the off gas more of carbon dioxide, which will diminish our ability to utilize our oxygen efficiently. So from the cellular point of view, cellular respiration, O2 does not reach to our cells and tissues when we breathe more. So keep that thing in mind. We think that, oh, the more we breathe, the healthier we'll feel. But that's just the opposite. Okay. So CO2 levels in our, I'm not going to go into the physiological aspect, but if you are keen and interested to find out, look up the Bohr effect, B-O-H-R. Bohr effect is by Dr. Buteyko. If you Google that, and we'll be talking, as I said, in the future sessions, I'll be going deeper into these particular questions and about the breath. But again, as I mentioned, that we are just sprinkling this, so you start thinking on those lines. So if you are doing more breathing to feel that, oh, I want to feel better and healthier, it's wrong. Okay. So now let's go to the next question, and this is taking a deep breath means taking a big breath. Is it true or false? Taking a deep breath means taking a big breath. Few more seconds. 10 more seconds. With the bar, I still see going back and forth. All right. So yes, 75% people. Oh. So 75%, 76. Okay. 76% now it shows says false, and 24% says true. So based on those two questions, you may have figured out, right? But yes, the answer is false. That taking a deep breath, it does not mean taking a big breath. So just take a moment here right now and focus in your breathing and notice what happens if you are taking big breaths. Take bigger breaths and feel that. Another 2 or 3 more breaths. And one more. I'm looking at Kamlesh, the way he's taking the breath. So, but believe me, yesterday he answered this wrong. He said, deep and big is the same thing. And we had big discussion going on this one. So I said, okay, let's have people also give it a try. So what did you notice? Big breaths, you end up doing it in the chest when you take bigger breaths. You start to use the other muscles, the accessory muscles, to help you breathe. It's important that we do the deep breathing and not the big breathing. When we do deep breathing, it's important to engage our diaphragm with our abdominals, those visceral organs in our body. So when we go deep, deep is what? Away from the top surface, lower in the body. That's what deep means. When we do deep breathing, that's the time the gas exchange happens. The oxygenated blood gets into our body, right? It gets exchanged at the bottom tip of our lungs, and that's how then the respiration, the whole gas exchange process starts. That's why it's important to do deeper breathing, lower in the body, so that healthier oxygenated blood gets circulated in our body. When we do chest breathing, it's not helping. But people end up doing chest breathing for many reasons. One of the main reasons I have noticed is when they are doing pranayama techniques, all the pranayama practices they do. They don't even realize it, but they end up taking bigger breaths, and you name it, Kapalbhati, Bhastrika, and other pranayama techniques. But these are the two main very common practices we do, right? Doing that, people end up doing chest breathing, and it's not the way to do the pranayama. So even in those pranayama techniques, it's important that you do deeper breathing, lower in the body. That's important, right? So now, with that said, our next question is, okay. It is important to empty the lungs completely of air. Is it true or false? Few more seconds. And this is our last question, if I'm not wrong. Yes. The bar is still going back and forth, so another 10, 15 seconds. All right. So 56% have said true and 44% have said false. Yes, so the answer is false. At any given point, we cannot completely empty our lungs. And it's our usual mentality that, oh, I want to make sure that all the stale air is removed. I want to exhale out completely. But there is a residual volume in our lungs, which we are born with it. And when we die, it still stays there. So beginning and till we end our life, that residual volume is always there. So we are never, ever empty. We cannot never, ever empty our lungs. So people, again, as I said, doing especially Kapalabhati, where there is all forceful exhalation, and they practice this in such a huge extreme way that they don't even realizing that they are making themselves off gas. There is a lot of imbalance in there, and they feel nauseated and lightheaded and dizziness, not realizing what they are doing. Too much of, as I said, too much of anything is not good. Even in breathing, that's true, and that's the fact. So listen to your body. And as I had mentioned in the beginning, each individual is going to be different based on their body's metabolic need, based on their age and sex and the weight of their body, and also based on what health conditions they have, right? So just because a guru is there or you are practicing from a YouTube, all these pranayama techniques, go slow, take small steps, listen to your own body, and work accordingly. And keep those things in mind, that breathing deeper is better. In general, breathing low and slow and light. Those are the keywords you want to keep in mind. As you are sitting also, breathing is so important that at rest, you may at times feel that you are taking deep breath, or you take sigh. Those are also the indications that something is not right. And we'll be talking more about it if at all we meet this, and we'll do this in future sessions. But it's so important to know your day-to-day breathing. Every minute, every moment, your breath is changing based on what's going on around you. So even if you are breathing through your mouth, you want to keep in mind that's no. Breathe in as much as through your nose. But listen to your body. At a certain time, you may feel that, oh no, I have to take that big breath and I have to take it through my mouth. Go ahead and do that. This breath aspect is you have to slowly, gradually develop this. Adjust your metabolic need based on what is required. And CO2 is important for us. That's another key thing I want to mention. The CO2 is important. So don't just remove all the CO2 from your body. And the CO2 is produced through movement. So keep in mind, keep moving, keep moving. That's going to help you. So with this, I'm going to end my session. I just wanted to sprinkle a few things so you start thinking on those lines. And we'll talk more in future about this. So thank you, Anand, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, JSCNC. So I'll We can talk more if you want to. You can ping me if you're not sure what we just did, like, you know, why I still didn't make any sense to me. We can talk about it offline, email me or ping me at any time. And my email address, Anand can put it on the chat box. So you can email me that. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank
Jai
you. Thank you
Jinendra.
so much. Yeah, Jai Jinendra. And of course, on behalf of the committee and the entire community, I want to thank you for your time. You know, as I mentioned at the beginning of introducing this segment, we're going to be, we wanted to, you know, bring new content, and the goal was not necessarily, you know, make it a longer, deeper session, but rather focus on a shorter segment with a few key aspects introduced to the broadest of the audience. But I would like to build this, you know, as a continued segment, right? So, you know, as Jyoti Ben's availability, based upon, you know, her time, we will definitely be setting up more sessions. And everyone listening in, you know, if you feel like any one of these topics that, you know, you perhaps would like to speak, we'll try to structure this specifically in a way that it's easier for a new speaker to just, you know, try it out. They're only 30-minute segments, so don't feel like you need to prepare a lot of, you know, elaborate presentations. But, you know, feel free to reach out to me or anyone in the committee, and would love to, you know, get you added to a future session. So with that, thank you so much, Jyoti Ben and Kamlesh Bhai, of course, for your wonderful technical support. The poll ran flawlessly. So
my job.
good job. All right. So let's now switch to our regular discourse session. So I'm going to, you know, let me introduce our next speaker. So today's discourse session will be led by Sudhir Bhai Shah. Sudhir Bhai, you know, similar to Jyoti Ben, is someone who needs no introduction. But you know, for the sake of those who may not have listened to him in the past, he lives in the Triangle area, longtime community member, and he's been a regular speaker at so many of our monthly meetings. We've had him also present at annual camp, or, you know, impromptu discussions at Mahavir Jayanti, etc. In addition to all of the local sessions that he has led, he's also spoken at a lot of national and international conferences. And his thoughts are very engaging. I might add, you know, thought-provoking too. Personally, like, I remember there has never been a session of his that I have attended where I did not walk away with thinking, you know, I didn't think, you know, in this regard at all about this topic that he previously introduced. And it definitely, you know, gets the gears spinning in your head, thinking about some of the topics, you know, that he typically brings for the community. He definitely does put in a lot of research. You know, he's well read. So with that, I hope you'll benefit greatly from his session, and put the tools and, you know, topics to some great use in your daily life. So with that, today's set, I'll turn it over to Sudhir Bhai Shah. Today's topic is soul, consciousness, and science. Over to you, Sudhir Bhai.
Jai Jinendra. It's so good to be here with everybody, and I can't wait to do this in person. So let me ask you, how many of you have wondered what consciousness is? Where does it come from? What is its purpose? Well, you're not alone. The question of consciousness has been examined by philosophers and theologians for millennia. And for the longest time, the nature of consciousness was the exclusive purview of religions and philosophers. So in the Western world, we had Plato and Aristotle, to Rene Descartes of I think, therefore I am, and then Locke and Kant, and many other modern philosophers have struggled on this subject. And in the East, you have Confucius in China, and then you have Vedic and Shramanic philosophies in India that were completely immersed into understanding consciousness, right? But recent evidence suggests that the shift has taken place. Scientists are getting into the game. So has the nature of consciousness finally shifted from a philosophical question to a scientific one that can be solved by doing experiments? So I'm often asked, as a scientist, do you believe in the existence of soul? Is soul and consciousness the same thing? Is Jainism a scientific religion? So we'll explore these questions and the hard question as defined by David Chalmers. What is the biological basis of consciousness? Or how does consciousness get into this world? We'll also examine questions like, is consciousness fundamental characteristics of the organism or an emergent phenomena of the complex processes of the brain? How should we define consciousness? What is consciousness in the context of evolution? Next slide. So unlike, okay.
Are you sharing, Sudhir bhai, or do you want me to share?
No,
Sorry
you
to
share.
interrupt you.
No,
Okay.
you want to share.
Let-
Yeah, I had
let-
difficulty, so
Yeah, let me know if you can see my screen.
I can, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so next one. Great. So unlike my other sessions where we look at a practical application of a Jain principle, this session is pure exploration and for challenging our intuitions. So we'll be asking a lot of questions. We will examine various perspectives on consciousness. We'll explore idea, but we are not going to make conclusions. I still feel that you'll walk away with something of value, or at least like me, you will also be left with wonder and awe. So if you have any questions or if you feel the session is becoming too technical, feel free to stop me and ask questions. If you have opinion or a disagreement, I would request to hold it till the end of the session and you will have opportunity to express that too. Next. So who is the fan of J. Krishnamurti? He says, when you conclude, you stop learning. Inquiring mind is an intelligent mind. And my favorite, observing without judging is the highest form of intelligence. So next. So unlike religions, which are based on belief and faith, challenging intuition is a purview. So I believe that science at the cutting edge is all about questions that no one is asked. So before we go any further, I thought we should at least wrap our head around our intuition about consciousness. So what are the most basic and strongest intuition we have about consciousness? How do we recognize consciousness? How do we define consciousness? Any thoughts? Next. No? Okay, let's go to the next one. So one such thing, one is behavior that you can point to that we can use as an conclusive evidence of consciousness. So for example, a child falls down and is crying, asking for a Band-Aid. All that behavior signifies that yes, the child is conscious. But could we be wrong? Could our intuition be wrong? Suppose with an advanced AI, we create a robot child that has been programmed to mimic all those human behavior, but the lights are out. So the robot child falls down, cries, exhibits behavior of a child in pain, asks for Band-Aid. Is the robot then conscious? Because it's showing all the behavior. On the flip, Take an example of a human being who's totally paralyzed due to a condition called locked-in syndrome and exhibits no behavior at all. It has full experience of consciousness. It can hear, smell, feel, but has no way of expressing it. Is that person then not conscious? So I guess behavior does not give us the right answer. So let's go to the next one. Let's see, where are we? We have that slide. Okay, we went a little further. Okay, go back to the previous one for a second. Okay, so subjective experience. So Thomas Nagel, in his essay on what is it like to be a bat, links consciousness to experience. And it is the experience at its most fundamental level, not as a human being what we can think about, but the most fundamental experience. So, so for example, a computer program can recognize various colors based on its wavelength, but it cannot experience the blueness of the blue or redness of the red, right? So it's the experience at the lowest level. So next slide, please. So, okay. So according to Thomas Nagel, an organism is conscious if there is something that it is like to be that organism. Any questions there? Do you get that? It's a little tricky language, but if it is like to be that organism, then that organism is conscious. So now that we have workable definition of consciousness, let's look at some perspectives on consciousness. Next slide. So Jain philosophy has a unique perspective on consciousness, right? First of all, based on its axiom of Jain philosophy, soul exists, period. So you don't question the existence of soul in Jain philosophy. Because if you don't believe in the existence of soul, then everything else that follows falls apart. So this certainly is based on belief, and it has not passed the scrutiny of scientific evidence. So soul exists, soul is eternal and independent. And of course, it's responsible for its own action and experiences the consequences from its action. So you have the karma theory, right? Next slide. Secondly, Jainism regards consciousness as the most fundamental and intrinsic property of the soul. So consciousness, chetna in Jainism, is an essential and defining characteristics of the soul, jiva, and cannot exist without the soul. So according to Jainism, not only humans, but also all living beings, including animals, plants, even microbes, and even natural elements such as air, water, fire, earth, have soul, and thus potentially infinite consciousness. Again, this is based on a belief. There are other beliefs and other theories as well. Many religions have their own concept of soul or consciousness. Let's look at some of the other beliefs. Next slide. So according to the philosophical materialism, mind and consciousness are the byproduct of material process, such as biochemistry of human brain, without which they cannot exist. So the theory goes this way. Some 3.8 billion years ago was a Big Bang that started the universe. Units of matter, the atoms, interacted in the universe, and the interaction is commonly then called chemistry. After countless random chemical reactions, self-replicating molecules known as DNA eventually formed, and DNA molecules served as the building block for the evolution of life. organisms evolve and develop brains. Brains enable human beings to have mind and awareness. So this inner experience is then called consciousness. In short, materialism assumes that brain, a matter, produces consciousness through kinetic, genetic, and neurochemical mechanisms. Of course, this is also a theory and it's unproved. I would even assert that it is unprovable theory. Next. So what is it about a piece of matter that gives rise to physical experience? Neurocorrelates don't answer this question, why we have that experience. So scientific experiments have shown us that there are physical or biological or neurological determinants, but it does not answer why and how it arises. Further you move away from humans or rats, where most of the experiments are done, how do we even know that they are conscious? How low does consciousness go? Can machine be conscious? They have experience. Can Alexa be conscious? So Christoph Koch, Francis Crick. So many of you may know Francis Crick, right? Of Watson and Crick, the guys who developed the double helix structure of DNA. So after the Nobel Prize, Watson continued his research into DNA, and under his leadership, the whole human genome project was formed. But Francis Crick, on the other hand, after revealing the mysteries of life, he decided to reveal the mysteries of mind. So he joined his forces with Christoph Koch, who was a neurobiologist and an engineer, and started on the consciousness. And they created what they call a integrated information theory that tries to determine the causal power. How does the consciousness, what are the causal powers of consciousness, right? And they even came up with a measurement of phi, phi, that can measure the level of consciousness. And the way they came up with this is they said, okay, so let's look at the neurocorrelates in your brain. When you see, when you hear, when you feel, what neurons are being fired, what clusters of neurons are being fired. And then when you integrate all that information, what happens? What fires? And they realized that through literally hundreds of thousands of permutations and combinations, they realized that there are certain areas, certain neurons that fired consistently when there was integration of all that information. And those were at around 40 megahertz. So they said, oh, that may be where the consciousness resides. So based on that, they created the measurement. So here's the thing. When they measured some of the latest AI, they found that the phi was greater than 0. Next slide. So again, we go back to the foundation, the biological basis of consciousness, right? So for that, if you look at the foundational theory of physics, even periodic tables of chemistry, or endless ACGT chatter of genes, nowhere it says anything about experience, which is the foundation of consciousness, right? So how does matter give us an experience? Do you believe that more understanding of brain processes or chemical analysis or mapping of our genome would give us that, more information on fundamental nature of consciousness? I don't think so. Next. So there are a lot of research has been done in molecular biology, in neurology, in quantum physics. So one such experiment was the split brain research. So neuroscientists Michael Bisanica and Roger Sperry first performed this procedure on epileptic patients. Now, epileptic patients have seizures. So seizures is nothing but electric storm that takes over your brain, and it keeps firing at randomly. And it's very uncomfortable and very painful for the patient. So what they thought that, what if we were to divide the brain in the middle at the corpus callosum level and split the brain into two? And experiment was successful. And it gave patient much needed relief, because now that electric storm forming from one side of the brain did not travel to the other side. Patient felt much better. And through what is interpreter effect, they even behave very normally. Now, is everybody familiar with interpreter effect? No? Okay. So what they found is when the brain was split into two parts, when you give instruction to one part of the brain, the other part does not know that instruction because it's not traveled through the corpus callosum, right? So if you told a patient that, okay, go get a glass of water, he would get up and go get a glass of water, but you told that to one part of the brain. So say left part of the brain got the instruction. The right part did not know what the instruction was, right? But if you ask the right part of the brain, why did you get up and get a glass of water? The right part would make up a logical explanation and would say, well, I was thirsty. So that is the interpreter effect. And that allowed those patients, even though their brain was cut into half, to function normally. But here's the interesting part. Now, inside their skull were two separate conscious entities. And it resulted sometimes in even hemispheric rivalry. For example, one hand would try to button the shirt while other would try to unbutton the shirt. There was constant struggle between two parts of the brain. There was also a case where one half was Christian, the other half was atheist. So what does that tell us about our sense of self? Next. Then there is a question of, is consciousness a spectrum or is it binary? Is the lights are on or it's not, right? When does consciousness enter the biological or physical system? When does the fetus become conscious? Is the sperm and egg by itself conscious, or when it's fertilized, then egg become conscious? Or when the fertilized embryo is dividing and subdividing and differentiating, it becomes conscious. Does it go through semi-consciousness phase first and then become conscious? So these are all the questions that come from research. Even if you assume that there is a spectrum of consciousness, the spectrum drops off at the lower end of the spectrum, right? And then it becomes binary. It is conscious or it is not. Next. And there's a question of, again, the level of consciousness, right? Versus, plants versus worms versus insects versus mammals versus humans. Now, Jainism has neatly classified all organisms in 5 categories based on number of senses. And it assumes that more the senses, higher the consciousness. Or is it true? How about plants? Are plants conscious? Now, again, if you look at the, go to the next slide, please. Jains believe that yes, plants are conscious because they have soul. They are alive, living being as a soul, and consciousness is the characteristic of the soul. So that's the Jain perspective. And Jains believe that plants have one sense, so it has the minimum of consciousness. However, Corey Allen spent a lot of time in Amazon rainforest studying plant behavior, and he experienced the plant consciousness. And based on his observation, he even questioned, why are the plants different than human beings? Now, Corey Allen used to be vegan. And after his experience in Amazon rainforest, he started consuming meat and dairy, saying that between plants and human animals. Again, I would tell him that by consuming meat and dairy, he was supporting the very industry that was responsible for the destruction of those Amazon forests he fell in love with. But again, this argument comes up very much in the Twitterverse. Being a vegan, I hear all the time that, well, there is no difference between plants and human. So let's look at Susan Samart's work. Has anybody seen her TED Talk? It's fascinating. So Susan Samart is a Canadian scientist who worked in the National Rainforest of Canada. She also grew some trees in the lab settings to study the communication that happens underground through what is called mycorrhizal network. So these are fungal network underground. So there are root systems, but there are also systems of fungus that help trees communicate with each other. She used radioactive carbon-14 so she could trace it and prove that these plants share carbon and nitrogen with each other. They even send defense signals to each other. There's this incredibly elaborate system of communication happening underground, some of which even mimics human behavior. So she observed that the trees that have dropped seedlings, she refers to them as mother trees, are able to recognize through these networks which tree in the forest are their own kins. They then send more carbon to them. They send defense signals that they don't send to other trees. They make room for their roots. So they are literally favoring and protecting their own kids. How is that different from human beings? Next. So again, we keep going back to the hard question, what is the biological basis of consciousness? And David Hoffman, professor of cognitive science at University of California at Irvine, he wrote a wonderful book called Case Against Reality. And in that, he suggests that, is it possible that we are thinking of this backwards? That instead of the matter giving rise to consciousness, that consciousness is the fundamental nature of the universe, and it gives rise to the physical world. Even David Chalmers, the Australian philosopher who gave us the whole problem of what is defined as hard problem, suggests that maybe it's time that we change the way we think about fundamental principles of physics. And he believes that consciousness should be viewed as a force of the universe, along with gravitational force, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, etc. Next. So Max Planck, another Nobel laureate physicist who laid the foundation for quantum physics, said that I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as the derivative of consciousness. So does this answer the hard question? And maybe the second most important question of science, that what is consciousness? And maybe in turn, does it also answer the first most important question of science that science has not been able to answer so far? What is universe made of? Maybe it is consciousness. Let's go to the next slide. So that brings us to panpsychism. Has anybody heard about panpsychism? So it is a category of theories that believe consciousness is fundamental feature of the universe. So even down to the level of atoms, and it gives matter its intrinsic property that gives all matter some level of consciousness, some level of experience. So whenever there is matter, there is some level of experience. That's what panpsychism tells us. Now, this is this has given rise to, I think, the whole new age metaphysics. And there's a lot of strange things people started believing based on this. And that for that reason, I believe that this is such a taboo subject for scientists, that although some mainstream scientists take some view of panpsychism privately, they are unwilling to admit it publicly because it's such a career ender, because their funding would dry up. I still believe that it is a legitimate category of theories, and we should be open and study and explore it. Next. So there's one problem regarding panpsychism, right? That what is it called? What's called a combination problem. So we know our body is made up of billions of cells. Now, based on panpsychism, each cell is conscious in itself. So how does all those cells millions of or billions of cells combine to give us one consciousness, one collective consciousness, right? Or two collective consciousness based on split brain research. So next slide. So how far do you want to go down the rabbit hole? We know that our body, for every cell in your body, there are 10 additional bacteria, viruses, or fungi in your body, right? Either in your gut or in your skin. So this microbiome perform functions for us. They help break down some foods. They even protect us from pathogens. Microbiome is a phenomenal protector from external pathogens. In addition, some of these organisms in our body are parasites. They control the behavior of the host. And they do that using some neurochemicals, either by mimicking the neurochemicals of the host or disrupting some signals so they can get host to do what they need, right? So host does their bidding. So if you have a craving for chocolate, it may not be you, it may be your microbiome. There's a lot of research has been done on toxoplasma. So toxoplasma is a parasite that needs to complete its life cycle in a cat. So there's part of the life cycle is outside the cat and part of it inside the cat. So what scientists did was they infected rats with toxoplasma. So rats normally have fear for cat and they run away from cat, right? But rats that were infected with toxoplasma lost their fear for cat. Some of them even ran straight into the cat because those toxoplasma wanted to finish its life cycle in cat's stomach. So when they infected human beings with toxoplasma, male also lost some of their fears. So they saw that happening in the male as well. But females behave differently. They became very talkative when they were infected with toxoplasma. So again, all this research challenges our notion of consciousness, our notion of conscious will and our sense of self, right? Who we really are. Next slide, please. So our sense of self comes from what is called default mode network. So this is the network that basically gives the awareness of that allows us to have self-reflection, have self-criticism. It just gives you a sense of self, right? And you can quiet that default mode network through meditation. And then you get connected through your true self, because default mode network is no longer interfering with your brain. So meditation is certainly one part. The other part scientists found is psychedelics, where people take psychedelics to be able to experience something other than their body, maybe a different dimension. How many of you have heard about ayahuasca? So ayahuasca is a concoction of all psychedelic herbal herbs that shaman prepares in Amazon rainforest. So many of the high-tech CEOs from Silicon Valleys regularly go to Amazon to and then come up with new ideas and create a new company. So how many of you want to go to Amazon rainforest and experience ayahuasca? So that brings us to the next slide. Okay. So time. So consciousness exists in time, now in present moment, right? However, some of the brilliant physicists like Nima Arkani Ahmed, these are new age physicists. You may be able to see, he has a lot of talks on YouTube. If you get a chance, listen to it. The language is kind of difficult to understand, but at the base, you will see that he believes that at the fundamental level, there is no space or time. Carlo Rivieri, another physicist, he believes that there is no such thing as time. Every moment of time exists simultaneously. Try to wrap your head around that, right? So I think in terms of time, we don't have a lot of time. So let's go back to the basic question that we had originally asked. Is Jainism a scientific religion? Well, my short answer is no. But again, why does it even matter? Next. So we scientists, oh, next one, yeah, sorry. So we scientists also, who pride ourselves in our objective lenses, are still held prisoners by our own cognitive biases. So I hope you enjoyed and you are left with some level of wonder and awe. And I'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sudhir. As he reminded earlier, feel free to unmute your mic and ask him questions, or you can use the chat feature. In case you don't want to, speak, you can send it via chat as well.
I have a question. Hi, Sudhir.
Hi, how are you?
Everyone. Hi, thank you for inviting me to this. I really have enjoyed it so far. My question is, when you were talking about the different consciousness, like you can have more than, I know I'm going in and out my background, sorry. Multiple consciousness. Could you kind of talk a little bit about how that relates to split personalities?
Okay, so there's a lot of neurologists on this very subject, and they have used various technique of CAT scan, even fMRI, to see when a person behaves in certain way, what part of the brain lights up. And they found that human mind is such that what we present ourselves. So let me maybe go back to some of the work done by Hoffman. What is the evolutionary basis? What is the use of consciousness? Why do we even need consciousness on for the evolution, right? And the conclusion he comes to is consciousness does not help in your evolution. The natural selection does not favor higher consciousness. The fitness payoff is what the evolution is all based on, right? So different personalities have different fitness payoff, according to him. And that's why you have multiple personality in an individual. Some are expressed, some are not expressed. I hope that answers some of the question.
That did. Thank you.
Some part of the question. Anyone else?
We have one question from the audience, Sudhir Bhai. I will read that from the
Sure.
chat. What do you say about consciousness? It is fundamental. Are there levels of consciousness? And it is the same as soul or different?
So depending on the perspective, right? According to Jain, consciousness is characteristics of the soul. They are different. Soul and consciousness are different. But they cannot exist independently. Soul, without soul, consciousness cannot exist, according to Jain philosophy. Some of the other philosophies have very different beliefs. Buddhism, for instance, do not believe in the existence of the soul, but they believe in the existence of consciousness. Science, on the other hand, talks very little about soul. They concentrate all on consciousness because soul is very difficult. Science look at the empirical evidence, and there is no empirical evidence for soul, but for consciousness, there are empirical evidences. So science talks about mostly about consciousness. Now, different level of consciousness. I mean, logically, it feels that yes, there would be different level of consciousness. However, an organism is either conscious or it's not. So lights are on or off. So in that, it's binary. I know I'm not answering the question directly, but my idea here is to invoke thinking, invoke your mind rather than provide answers. But yeah, I'll attempt to at least guide you.
So I was the one who was asking that question.
Okay.
Just considering you've seen these different perspectives, I've had some interest in this subject also, but okay. I wanted to see, with all the theories that you have learned, what is your, I think, prevailing synopsis? It may change depending upon more research that would come, more science will evolve, or some spiritual theories will come, some connections will happen. What is your as-is thought about consciousness? Is it fundamental, like time and space? Is it, and you build laws on top of consciousness, or do you see that as a soul as a separate thing and a consciousness as a separate thing? Because consciousness sometimes by definition would be an awareness, and a lot of non-sentient beings don't have awareness. So where do you stand on this whole differing theories?
So you're going to force me to reveal my opinion.
No, it's just I respect your academics and your sincere interest in the subject. So
Right. No. So I like to remain in that wonder and awe rather than try to answer any of this question. I keep looking at theories, and some of them seem more plausible than the other. I do believe that more we know, I do believe that consciousness we consider as the fundamental nature of the universe. I think that's where even some of the quantum physicists are going. Again, their models are typically mathematical, and they have been able to show mathematically it exists. It's like the example I gave you of the Christoph Koch and Francis Crick, that they even created a measurement fee, right?
So
and as we do more and more research in AI, I think that would reveal a lot more. The latest thing I've heard is they are looking at making computer chips instead of making from silicon using DNA. Now that would, I think, change the game.
Yep.
Now you're combining biological aspect with the in bringing biological aspect into.
Yeah. I see a few hands in the audience. I think people would like to join this discussion. So let me go to Praveen Uncle next, and then I'll come back to Mayur Bhai.
Sudhir, what happens to the consciousness when you live only in the present moment? Just to see, that is the characteristics of Keval Gnani person. Okay.
Right.
If
so
the person is a money, the mind disappears. In reality, only awareness exists. What happens to the consciousness the way you explain it? All right. If your mind has a no rate of flow of thoughts, okay, there is nothing. It's only awareness exists, is nowhere an observer state. What happens to the consciousness from your theory point of view?
Yeah, so again, I have no point of view. I presented various point of views here. For Jain perspective versus scientific perspective, right? There are small subtleties, but even with Jain perspective, right? The consciousness does not reside in your mind. So if you assume that your mind is still, that does not affect the consciousness part. So first of all, it's very, very difficult to even put.
If your mind is still, okay, then
consciousness is still there, right?
In reality, time disappears because you are only in the present moment.
Right. Okay.
You are only in the present moment. The time disappears.
Okay. So then, based on that, Jainism agrees with Nimar Kani Ahmed.
That is the point I'm trying.
There is no such thing as time and space.
Yeah.
It's made up.
And that is the reason in the moksha, everybody is at the same way in the infinite, whatever the words you want to use it, it's in a bliss state, in a blissful state forever. Okay. All right. Let others go.
Thank you.
Yeah, we may find a mathematical model that supports that.
Let's hear from Mayur Bhai Lodaya next.
Thank you. So a very complicated and a very difficult subject, but thank you for bringing the ongoing research to our attention so we can start exploring. I will first raise my hand and say that a lot of what you showed, I do not know. don't have the concept yet, but very interesting. My question was more towards the side of, and maybe I'm going to not articulate this well, but I'm going to try. We all want to live in happiness, and we don't want to have the term we use is dukh, or how should I say, pain in some ways. Is any of the research that you are aware of going down this path? So you were talking more of the consciousness, but again, how you feel, whether you feel good or you feel bad, is expressed through your consciousness. So is there any work ongoing that connects these pieces? That's my question.
Okay, so
hopefully I articulated the question properly.
Right. So if I understand the question correctly, do you believe that feelings, happiness, sadness, are connected to consciousness?
Correct.
Or is there any experiment showing that? So again, neurological shows that for every feeling that we have, you have different neurocorrelates in that light up. So they connect that to the feelings relates in your brain. So it's connected to your brain's action versus the consciousness. Right? Now, if you believe that consciousness resides in brain, then you would say, okay, then there is some connection. But if it resides in brain, if it is independent of brain, then the feeling would have nothing to do with consciousness.
Maybe
the
not.
reason for that, and let me
please.
Yeah. So the reason for that would be that our feelings or our sadness are related to the body, the physical part of our body, rather than the, if you take Jainism principle, soul, where the consciousness is the characteristics of the soul. When you separate those two, then consciousness may not have anything to do with your how you feel.
So my interpretation of it would be slightly different in that while mind and consciousness are different, but consciousness could be directing the mind. So the neurons that are fired in the brain in different places, they may be governed by consciousness as the manager term that we use. Right. That's directing the brain. So it could be that. I was just thinking more along the lines of Anand. Amit Bhai asked one point, Praveen Bhai took it to another place, and I now took it to a third place, just trying to understand whether there is ongoing research in those different places. But thank you very much. Very interesting. Continue, please.
Yeah. No, so I think what I would suggest is maybe read Donald Hoffman's work, where he looks at the what is the importance of consciousness in evolution? Why it does even exist, right? Why do we even need consciousness? Because for survival, what all you need is the instinct, or what he calls the fitness payoff. And there's a measurement. He even devised the whole mathematical formula. And I think Chetan Prakash is a mathematician who helped him create the model. But maybe look at his reading, may get some.
So the last thing I would say is, again, I may disagree in that I may define survival in a different manner than the way you are defining it. But I will stop here and give others an opportunity, those who may have questions. Thank you, Anand.
So that's the beauty of this conversation, right? that everybody can have their opinion and express it.
Well, that's the,
Thank you.
that's the
I
best
got
part
this
of
book.
this of
By
this
the way,
discourse.
it
Praveen
is
bhai,
not
go
a-
ahead.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I have this book. It is called The Evolution of Gods. Okay, how did the God evolve? Not the consciousness, know what you are talking about. The book is like, you can see it here. Okay, it is the evolution of the gods. Okay, the scientific origin of divinity and the religions. It's a wonderful book. I mean, somebody should really read and how all these things got evaluated, and ultimately how everything is in your mind that can come.
So
comes
yeah,
into
I'll give my short answer to that is man created God in his own image, and all trouble in the universe started.
No, not only man created a God in his own image. The God is created by man in his own image.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
So
Man created God in his own
whatever we
image.
think, okay, that's what we think. The God is doing it. Okay. Anyway, that is one of the Hindu Upanishads. Okay.
Okay.
Right. That's Hinduism is a really great religion from that point of view. Everything under the sun is covering. All right, go ahead.
I have
Amit bhai, go ahead. Sorry.
I have a question.
Yes.
And my question is probably very basic compared to the rest of the questions you received so far. So I remember I think listening to you a couple of years ago when I think you had a session focused on some scientific experiments done on soul and Jainism's view of how like soul is eternal. There have been experiments done to kind of see like when somebody dies, there's auras and other images that people claim to have seen that might give credence to this belief that soul is eternal. So if we say consciousness is an attribute of soul, are we saying a portion of your consciousness, from one life to next passes on, or the clock like resets, when soul is reborn into, another life? And you may probably want to have an opinion on this, either based on science or Jainism point of view, or maybe both.
So again, science has no evidence of it, right? So far. It is purely belief at this point. Whether it's Jain belief, other religions belief. So that's the reason I said that I don't think Jainism is a scientific religion, because it's based on belief. It's not based on empirical evidence or experiments. And science keeps changing. Religion does not change, right? We still hold on to our beliefs and say, this is it. Science will someday prove that we are right. But we don't change, right? Scientists are always ready that, we don't know everything. And what we know today is going to be different tomorrow. So what you suggested, there's no empirical evidence so far, but that doesn't mean we may not find it in the future.
Right.
So based on Jain beliefs, yes, the soul transitions into another form and takes all the consciousness with it, because that's the characteristics. So anyway, yeah.
That was I guess maybe my part two of the question. In Praveen Uncle or anyone, if you have any opinion on it, are we saying if we accept that soul transitions from one life to next, and then if we believe in this concept of consciousness, are we saying any portion of the consciousness transfers over to the next life, or the clock resets? Basically, you just start forming new sets of consciousness, experiences and whatnot.
I read a book some time ago, Many Lives, Many Masters. Okay, if anybody has read about it, then you will know it. The psychiatrist from Cleveland he is like curing, like, so if somebody is really afraid of a dog, okay, or a cat, whatever it is, okay, or water even, they don't want to go into the water, how he cures them. And what he does is hypnotizing the person. And these are all real experiments. He changed the name, but the book is published like Many Lives, Many Masters. Okay, I forgot the author name right now. Okay, unless somebody knows that. Okay, anyway, but that person, once you hypnotizing, you taking to your childhood first, and then you taking you to the previous life. And sometimes he has to go like 10 lives before, okay, all the way. And then what happened in that life, something really happened. Let's say there was a flood, and you died in the water and all that one, and that thing get carried on the impression to you, and he has a great success. He has a great success in the sense, if you relive the same experience, you are cured. So what is happening in the hypnotism, he wants you to re-experience the same thing what you have been afraid of. And once you are re-experiencing it, the same thing, no, it is a cure. You see, there is no medicine, there is nothing like that. How he cures, and his curing rate is very significant by going through all these past lives, therapy. Okay, and that's the things. I read it in that book many, and we are all circling ourselves, one big conglomerations of the people or souls, consciousness, whichever, and we travel together actually, going from one life to another life, like we are here together. It is a part of the one bigger circle, all our friends and relatives. Okay, when you go to the next life, no, it will be portion will go with you, portion will be the new things, will be added. It's kind of a very amazing stories. Okay, all right.
Can I have one question?
He wants
Yes,
to.
Arshad uncle, go ahead.
Yes, yes.
My question
Yes.
is, my question, yeah, my question is, following to Amit, that if consciousness is with the soul, now in this life, my soul is in this human body. But if my soul moves to another body in the next life, and in this life, I'm afraid of tiger. But in next life, if my soul comes in the tiger, then I won't be afraid of the tiger. So consciousness, I don't know whether it is attached with the soul or not.
So Anand, just one. Go ahead, please. Any question or comments? I have one more comment to make, but I'll wait till somebody responds to that, Shalanka.
So I don't know about soul and experience, but memory and experience. There was an experiment when I was student. The lab across from hall from lab did experiments on rats on memory. So they trained rats to go through certain maze, and it was very difficult maze, and rat learn over a period of time to go through the maze very efficiently. Then they killed the rats, smashed up their brains, and fed to the other rats. And those rats, in the first try, went through the maze directly. So in those days on campus, there was a joke that you don't need to study all the books. Just cut up the brains of the professor and you'll know everything. So that's about the memory. I don't know anything about the soul.
No, the point I'm trying to make you in the soul, like Buddhism. Buddhism believes all other things, but does not believe in soul. So, like, even though they believe in reincarnation, they believe in philosophy of karma, and question always comes up. Who reincarnates? If they don't believe in soul, who is reincarnation? Who is born in the next life? Who is doing that one? And the answer Buddhism explained very beautifully. It is your present sanskar makes you the future. And it's a continuous flow. Past sanskar makes you the present, and present sanskar makes you the future. It is like a river is flowing. Okay, you cannot swim in a same river twice, no matter what you do, because the flow water is flowing, continuously flowing. And that's why we are made up of a continuous flow of thoughts. When thought stops, we liberated. Okay, because that's a definition of Kevala. If you don't have a thought, period, only the unawareness, not in the sleep type, but you are fully aware about your existence and there is no thought in your mind. That is the sign of liberation. Okay, that is the liberation actually from that. And if you look into it, it appears same way in Hinduism, similar way. Okay, I'm talking about, okay, Jainism and Buddhism. Okay, that's.
Anand, if there's time, I just want to make one,
go ahead.
One comment.
Yep.
Sudhir and closest we come to death in a controlled fashion is when we get put down for surgery, right? Most all of us, if we ever been through that process, there's no concept of time. When you open your eyes, the world has moved 3 hours, but for you, there was no time passed. Where did we go? And
a lot of the experiments are done during those anesthetic stage. Most of the neurological experiences, and they have used anesthesia as one of the ways of understanding it. But again, go ahead, continue.
I was just saying, those types of questions have puzzled me, and I wanted to compliment you, congratulate you. You achieved your purpose. The conversation started, curiosity is initiated now. So again, there's one particular video series that I follow. It's called Closer to Truth, and it's by Robert Lawrence Kuhn. And he's done interviews of lots of scholars, lots of scientists, physicists, biologists, spiritualists, you name it. And he brings in these different perspective about time, space, and a lot about consciousness. What is their latest thought process? And theologians are very much in the whole mix of things. But it's a very, very interesting subject. Someday we'll have all these answers. And consciousness is fundamental. You can write equations to say, if I affect this by this, this, and this, then it'll cause anger. If I affect this, this, and this, it will cause happiness. But anyway.
Cool. All right. In the interest, so I see a few hands. So let's just let a few people who have not had a chance speak now. So Purvi Shah, I see your hand. Would you like to say something or ask a question?
Yes. I think you called on me.
Yes.
JSCNC, everyone. I just wanted to point out that I know we use the term believe and belief a lot. And one thing I learned recently, and it kind of made a lot of sense to me during an Art of Living session that I attended, was I think the goal is, yes, we have to initially, believe to actually gain knowledge, but actually the goal in the end is actually just to know. So once we know and we're aware, we don't even need to believe anymore, because that just automatically happens. So I just wanted to share that with everyone, and so that they can think on that concept of knowing without even having to believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Purvi. Thanks for sharing that with us. The next hand I see from the audience is Shashin. Shashin, would you like to say something or ask a question?
Yes. Thank you, Anand Bhai. Hope folks are able to hear me. One thing what I wanted to ask was about the consciousness. Does consciousness vary? Meaning, can it have a flow, or does it have its various states? And another way was, does it behave or experience differently when you are in different state of mind? For example, where you are in meditative state, or while you are performing a normal activity, or while you're sleeping.
So you were breaking
Would
up.
you
I
like
didn't
to
get
take
the
that?
exact. I didn't get the exact question. It was breaking up. So if anybody else can repose it.
Yeah, I put in the chat. Basically, the question was, does consciousness behave differently when you are in a different state of mind? Example, that you're in a meditative state, or while sleeping, or during, or perform normal activity.
So depending on how you define consciousness, if we take our definition that we came up with on consciousness of experience, then that experience is going to vary based on different states of mind. And why a lot of people use meditation or psychedelics to be able to quiet the default mode network that interferes with your connected real you or the conscious you, right? So yes, experience is going to change based on your state of mind. If you consider experience as part of consciousness, but if you have different definition of consciousness, of course, this breaks apart, right? So everything is based on context, right? Any question that you ask is based on what context question is asked. Then the answer can come based on that context. If the context is different, the answer changes.
Thank you, Sudhir bhai. Any last questions? We're approaching the top of the hour, so I just want to be mindful of the time. Any last questions? All right, I'll take that as no.
Thanks a lot, Sudhir bhai.
Thank you for allowing me to present my ideas. I wasn't sure how it would go, but at least you guys got engaged with the conversation, so I'm glad that it worked.
No, thank you, Sudhir bhai. As I said in my introductory segment about you, I don't recall any session of yours that I have attended where it doesn't create a lot of additional thoughts. So in that sense, I think you served your objective again. Just judging by the audience engagement alone, I think it was a great topic. Normally at this time, we would have probably if we had more time, we would have gone through any new faces. I think we have tons of new faces. Some of them I know are Sudhir bhai's guests. So welcome all of you. If you like this format and if you enjoyed or benefited from some of these sessions that we did today, you're welcome to attend future sessions. Sudhir bhai you can reach out to Sudhir bhai if you don't know my contact information, and he can connect you with me. What we'll do is we'll add you to our mailing list, so you'll get future invitations for this particular discourse session. Again, no obligation. If you can't make it, that's fine. But if you're interested in attending future sessions, just let Sudhir bhai know, and he can connect us. So with that, I'm just going to spend a few minutes, just going through a couple of announcements that are important for the rest of the community. So the first one being, our treasurer, Mrs. Meenal Shah, she is diligently working on getting our 2021 financial summary audited. It is very important for us as a nonprofit institution to keep our records immaculate, so that IRS does not give us a hard time, just like us, as individual citizens. So she is going to be presenting the results at the March meeting, and I want to give special thanks to Badal Bhai Mehta to help us get the results audited this year. On April 30th, and I think some of you probably saw the announcement in the newsletter. Please, save that date on your calendar. We are going to have an in-person Mahavir Jayanti at the Hindu Center Cultural Hall. So it's the big hall in the back. The celebrations are going to be from 3 p.m. onwards. In the interest of, due to like COVID restrictions and of course in the interest of time, we're not going to be able to do a cultural program this year. So we will only have the puja, followed by Swapna Darshan, followed by Aarti Mangal Divo, and then we will have Swami Vatsalya dinner afterwards. So please save the date. You will be receiving lots of communication regarding Mahavir Jayanti over the next few weeks. So be sure you're on the lookout for all the emails. Our secretary Ketan does a fantastic job at keeping everyone informed. So just be on the lookout. We're also going to open up a number of categories for people to sponsor this year. In addition to Swami Vatsalya, as all of you longtime members know, there are several different categories that we typically have specific expenses to put together an event like this. So anyone wants to support, feel free to once you get the email, feel free to reach out to me or any of the committee members to get that going. And finally, we're gonna have I think last year when we did the virtual puja, several of the members sent us a feedback regarding some of the material for the Ashtaprakari puja. So, like especially children who may not have an opportunity to do that recently, or maybe they want to do it in the comfort of their home on the actual Mahavir Jayanti day. So I work with our puja team, and we're gonna order puja thali sets from India, which has all the material that you would need ever to perform Ashtaprakari puja, from the comfort of your home, or for that matter, even Snatra puja. So we're going to be sending a registration form. That registration form has a deadline that we must meet because a lot of the material is coming from India. So I just request all of you to pay attention when you get the email and sign up as soon as possible, so that we can give the accurate head count to our puja committee. And yeah, that's all the announcements. I think we have, I'm looking forward to personally having an in-person Mahavir Jayanti this year. I know a lot of you are excited to start, meeting in person. So this is going to be a great opportunity for us to at least come together as a community and put together a great program. All right, so with that, I will bring this meeting to conclusion, and I've asked Amit Potiwala to recite Uvasagara Sotra, and then we'll conclude the meeting. Amit, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm just going to share a screen because I have some images that would be useful as we go through it. Let me just say it this way. Aarti auntie જેટલો beautiful voice નથી, એટલો સારો રાગ બી નથી. But I'll say it with the best I have understood and have learned. So with that, Uvasaggaharam pasam pasam vandami kamma ganamukam visahara visa ninnasam mangala kallana avasam. The meaning here is Upasargne harnara parshva chakshavala कर्मना समूथी मुकायला विष्णे धारण करनारा एवा सर्पना विष्णे नाश करनार मंगल અને કલ્યાણ ધરરૂપ એવા શ્રી પાર્શ્વનાથને હું વંદન કરું છું. વિસહર ફૂલિંગમંતમ કંઠે ધારે ઈજો સયામણો તસ્સ ગહ રોગ મારી દુષ્ટ જરાજંતી ઉવસામમ. જે કોઈ મનુષ્ય વિષને હરનાર સ્ફુલિંગ મંત્રને કંઠમાં સદા ધારણ કરે છે, તેના ગ્રહ રોગ મરકી અને દુષ્ટ તાવ શાંતિને પામે છે. ચિઠ્ઠવું દુરે મંતો તુજ પણાવોઈ બહુ ફલો હોઈ નરતિરિયે સુવી જીવા પાવંતી ન દુઃખ દોગચ્છમ. તે સ્ફુલિંગ મંત્ર તો દૂર રહો, ફક્ત તમને કરેલા નમસ્કાર પણ ઘણા ફળને આપનાર થાય છે, અને મનુષ્ય તિર્યંજ ગતિમાં રહેલા જીવો પણ દુઃખ અને દુર્ભાગ્યને પામતા નથી. તુહ સંમત્તે લદ્દે ચિંતામણી કપ્પાય વભયે પાવંતીય વિઘેણમ જીવા ઐરામરમ ઠાણમ. ચિંતામણી રત્ન અને કલ્પવૃક્ષથી પણ અધિક એવું તમારું સમ્યક દર્શન જીવો પામે છે, તે પામવાથી નિર્વિઘ્નપણે અજરામર મોક્ષ પદને પામે છે. ઇય સંતુઓ મહાયસ પત્તિ ભરેણ હિ અયેણ તાદેવ દિગ્ચ બોહિમ ભવે ભવે પાસ જીર્ણચંદ. જે મોટા યશવાળા પાર્શ્વનાથ ભગવાન, ભક્તિના સમૂહથી પરિપૂર્ણ એવા હૃદયથી મેં આ પ્રમાણે સ્તવના કરી છે. તેથી હે દેવ શ્રી પાર્શ્વજીનચંદ્ર, મને જન્મો જન્મમાં બોધિ બીજ સમ્યક દર્શનને આપો. This is credited to જે પેલી નીચે વેબસાઇટ લખેલી છે jinvachanblogspot.com. Just wanted to let everybody know, if you want to take a screenshot, this is one place there are so many sutras that actually are described in various details. Actually, Prakrut language na classes ma, I have used this to learn exact words and how they translate from Prakrut to Gujarati and Sanskrit. So, and just some reference for everybody. Jai Jinendra, everyone. Thank you, Anand, for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you, Amit. Jai Jinendra, everyone. We'll see you all next month.
Amit bhai, that was excellent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jai Jilendra.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jai Jinendra, and that was excellent.
Jai Jinendra.
Repeating what Rekha Ben said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amit bhai, excellent.
Oh,
Namo
thank you. Thank you.
Harihantanam.
Namo
Thank you.
Harihantanam.
Thank you.
Thank you.